South Korean President Yoon Jongmin doubles down on the need for concerted global efforts to stop North Korea's illicit activities for weapons development, including that of China. This as he beefs up diplomacy with the ASEAN and other key regional players this week. School teachers mourning the recent death of fellow teachers took to the streets today across the nation, demanding better protection of their rights in classrooms. Visa fees will be temporarily exempted and flights will be expanded for Chinese tourists coming to South Korea following the removal of Beijing's years-long group tour ban. It's September 4th, 2023. This is News Center. Good evening. Thank you for joining us. I'm Yoon Jongmin. Before embarking on his trip to Indonesia and India for the ASEAN and G20 summits, South Korean President Yoon Jongmin doubles down on the need for concerted global efforts, including that of China, to counter North Korea's nuclear and missile threats. He is expected to hold separate meetings with leaders from more than a dozen different countries. Our foreign affairs correspondent Bae Eun-ji leads us off.
Before leaving for ASEAN-related summits and the G20 summit, President Yoon Suk-yeol has reportedly said he will urge the international community to work together to respond to North Korea's evolving missile and nuclear threats. In a written interview with AP News on Monday, Yoon said he will especially use the G20 summit to highlight the need to actively deter the regime from carrying out illegal activities, such as stealing cryptocurrency, dispatching workers overseas to earn foreign currency, and facilitating maritime transshipment, which are the main funding sources for its weapons development. The president added that he will also emphasize the need to address human rights concerns in North Korea. Noting that China accounted for 97% of Pyongyang's total trade volume last year, Yoon also stressed that Beijing must put forth constructive efforts to denuclearize North Korea. He said China must realize that the North's nuclear development also has a negative impact on its national interests. His remarks come after the North launched several cruise missiles off its west coast over the weekend, in an apparent protest against the recent annual military exercise conducted by South Korea and the United States. It also comes as he is set to travel to Jakarta for 4 days starting Tuesday, to attend a series of summits scheduled on the sidelines of a meeting of ASEAN leaders. Then on Friday, he plans to visit New Delhi for the G20 summit that will take place from Saturday to Sunday. A senior official from the presidential office told reporters on Monday that throughout the upcoming summits, Yoon will hold bilateral meetings with the leaders of 14 countries, and that the office is also scheduling meetings with 6 more. But the official added that China is not one of them, as the country has not said its leader Xi Jinping will attend the G20 summit this year. Bae Eun-ji, Arirang News.
Teachers across the nation today gathered in front of the National Assembly and elsewhere to mourn the passing of fellow teachers and to demand changes in classrooms. President Yoon and politicians are taking their voices seriously, vowing to institute change. Our political correspondent Kim Jong-sil reports.
Teachers in South Korea are grieving, and they're angry. They're grieving for lost fellow teachers, and they're angered by the lack of administrative measures to protect them. On the 49th day since the death of an elementary school teacher at Seoul's Hoi Elementary School, teachers from all over the country gathered in front of the National Assembly to mourn the young teacher who took her own life in July. They're also mourning 3 others from different schools who also committed suicide in just 4 days since last week.
Teachers dressed in black are demanding that the National Assembly change the law to better ensure teachers' rights, saying regular guidance should not be deemed child abuse.
The rally comes amid strong opposition from the Education Ministry that said while it sympathizes with the teachers, the ministry also respects the rights of students to be educated, adding that the educators should remain at their posts in schools. However, this did not stop the teachers from taking leave from their schools to participate.
I think there must be revisions made to the Child Welfare Act to clear up the blurred lines of what defines child abuse on school grounds, to better protect teachers' rights during educational activities.
President Yoon Suk-yeol ordered the government on Monday to take the teachers' complaints seriously and to make every effort to establish their rights and normalize the education sector. Ruling People Power Party leader Kim Ki-yeon said the ruling party will make every effort to pass 4 major bills that are aimed at strengthening teachers' rights. While main opposition Democratic Party leader Lee Jae-myung said education is the root of society and that it is the government's responsibility to listen to the teachers' demands. Both parties will discuss the bills at an assembly standing committee, and if all goes swiftly, they will be put to a vote at a plenary session as early as September 21st. Kim Jong-sil, Arirang News.
As China removes its group tour ban that lasted for years, South Korea comes up with incentives to encourage travelers with the aim of attracting 2 million Chinese tourists this year. Those include visa fees temporarily free of charge and expanded flights. Our culture correspondent Song Yoo-jin explains.
A month after China lifted its 6-year ban on group tours to Korea, the Korean government is working to make the most out of it. The goal is to triple the number of Chinese travelers from 500,000 in the first half of the year to 1.5 million in the second. Key measures include exempting Chinese nationals traveling in groups from paying electronic visa application fees until the end of this year, which cost 18,000 Korean won or around $13.60 per person. The Justice Ministry defines group tours as 3 or more individuals who've signed up for a tour through a travel agency designated by the Korean Embassy in China. When this change will take effect has yet to be decided, but the ministry says it's working to implement it soon. The number of flights between Korea and China will also be increased, though the exact number hasn't been announced. And there are initiatives to encourage these tourists to open their wallets. An additional 250,000 businesses nationwide will accept Chinese mobile payment services WeChat Pay and Alipay. Travelers will be able to enjoy immediate tax refunds at these stores from next month. An immediate tax refund is a system that instantly deducts the value-added tax on products when travelers present their passports at certified tax-free stores, which means no need to apply for a tax refund before leaving the country. The government will lower the minimum purchase limit available for this tax refund from 30,000 Korean won to 15,000 won from next year. The upper limit will jump from 500,000 won to 700,000 won per purchase. But the total purchase limit will remain at 2.5 million won. And to become a more appealing travel destination, the government will develop tailored tour packages like cruise trips from China to the southern port city of Busan and Jeju Island, as well as K-culture-themed tours incorporating K-food and K-beauty and medical tourism. Song Yoo-jin, Arirang News.
Shoppers in South Korea spent a record amount online for travel and transportation services in the month of July as they welcomed their first summer since COVID-19 was downgraded to an endemic. Data from Statistics Korea released on Monday shows that the online spending for these services surged more than 31% from a year ago to $1.6 billion. That's the highest ever on a monthly basis. Digital e-coupon service transactions were also up slightly at more than 28% year-on-year to around $557 million. The total value of online shopping rose some 9% from the same month in 2022 to $14.3 billion. The Korean government plans to skip a feasibility study for a chip cluster in the city of Yongin and aims to provide financing worth almost $140 billion for exporters to ramp up the country's outbound shipments. Our finance correspondent Shin Ha-young has details.
South Korea's economy is in the early stage of recovery. This is how Seoul's Finance Minister Chu Kyung-won Monday assessed the country's current economic status during an emergency ministerial meeting.
Recently, our economy has seen monthly fluctuations, but it appears to be in the early stages of recovery. However, uncertainties in external conditions such as China's economic situation remain.
The decline in exports in August narrowed from a month earlier thanks to a recovery in the chip industry. The country also reported a trade surplus for the third straight month. The government expects the fall in exports to narrow further in September, with the trade balance also set to stay in the black. In response to other economic uncertainties, Chu said that the government will remain cautious and focus on strengthening export recovery momentum. To do so, the government will provide 181 trillion Korean won, or roughly $137 billion of development policy financing to exporters through to the end of this year. It also plans to skip a feasibility study related to plans to build the world's largest high-tech chip production cluster so that it can be established more quickly. The massive semiconductor hub announced in March will be built in Yongin, Gyeonggi-do Province, which is close to the capital. To develop next-generation batteries, there will be new R&D projects, including for lithium iron phosphate batteries and sodium-ion batteries. Amid the heating up of OTT platform competition around the world, the government will also create a K-content strategic fund worth around $750 billion to expand its presence in the global entertainment industry. As part of their plans to diversify export regions, the government will target both major markets such as the US and China, as well as emerging markets like the Middle East. In particular, Chu emphasized the importance of China's market, saying that it plans to hold a bilateral finance ministerial meeting with China sometime this year. 신하영, Arirang News.
South Korea is the market leader in 6 categories, including smartphones, DRAM, OLED panels, NAND flash, ultra-thin TVs, and shipbuilding. According to a survey released by Nikkei on Monday, Korea last year ranked 3rd in the world alongside Japan when looking at countries with the most significant shares of certain markets among 63 products. Samsung Electronics is top for electronics, while HD Hyundai Heavy Industries expanded its share as the new leader in shipbuilding. U.S. companies held the biggest shares in the market for 22 products, followed by China leading 16 markets. Following her recent trip to China, U.S. Commerce Secretary Gina Raimondo says her country has sufficient tools to tackle Beijing's triggering of tensions if needed. China's Commerce Ministry, in the meantime, has held a nationwide meeting and discussed export regulations for the first time. Park Gon-woo covers the details.
U.S. Commerce Secretary Gina Raimondo said the U.S. has sticks to possibly counter China if Beijing triggers conflict. In an interview with CNN on Sunday, Raimondo said there are plenty of tools, including export controls and tariffs, to use against China that Washington is ready and willing to use if necessary. The remarks followed Raimondo's visit to China last week to discuss U.S.-China commercial ties. In another interview with NBC on the same day, she said Washington's export controls on China are about national security, not about gaining an economic advantage. Last year, the Biden administration announced export controls banning Chinese companies from buying advanced semiconductors and chip-making equipment without a license. Raimondo, despite strained relations between the two sides, reiterated the importance of the $700 billion bilateral relationship and said Washington will continue to sell chips to Beijing, but not the most sophisticated ones that China wants for military purposes. China is also willing to control exports as a response to the U.S. Following a first meeting held by China's Ministry of Commerce discussing export regulations 2 days ago, the country announced it will upgrade its export regulations and strengthen its national security values. China's state-affiliated media, Global Times, analyzed this movement as a retaliation against the recent action taken by the U.S. It added that the meeting was significant enough to show Beijing's determination to protect its economic security and for the country to have means of retaliation against nations that try to counter China's growth. Beijing has been imposing curbs on exports of 2 rare metals that are widely used in high-tech industries, including chip manufacturing, since August. The metals include gallium and germanium, which China accounts for most of the global production. The European Council's data showed over 90% of the minerals worldwide were produced by China from 2016 through 2020. Park Gon-woo, Arirang News.
Ukraine Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy has replaced the country's defense chief, citing the need for new approaches as the war with Russia enters its 19th month. In his nightly video address to the nation on Sunday, President Zelenskyy said he had decided to dismiss Defense Minister Alexei Reznikov from his post and replace him with Rustem Umerov, the former People's Deputy of Ukraine. This sets the stage for the biggest shakeup of Ukraine's defense establishment since the start of the war. Reznikov has served as defense minister since November 2021 and helped secure billions of dollars of Western military aid. His removal comes in the wake of a number of corruption scandals involving Ukraine's Ministry of Defense. Over in the U.S., rampant rainfall has rendered hostage thousands of campers at a festival in the state of Nevada amid related road closures, with one death reported. Lee Seung-jae has more.
The remote site of the annual Burning Man Festival in northwest Nevada in the U.S. was slammed with 2 to 3 months worth of rain in just 24 hours between Friday and Saturday morning. The heavy rain led to road closures that left around 70,000 attendees stuck in the Nevada desert as the dry desert ground turned into clay-like mud, making it too difficult to walk through. Authorities told attendees on Saturday to seek shelter in the Black Rock Desert and conserve food, water, and fuel as more rainy weather was expected in the area. While a few have managed to leave the area by walking, many RVs and cars became bogged down in mud. Authorities have not provided information on when the roads could reopen, but better weather is expected from Monday. Currently, no driving is allowed in or out of Black Rock City, a full-fledged, thriving temporary metropolis where the Burning Man Festival is held. Meanwhile, the local sheriff's office said it's investigating a death that occurred during the rain event after a body was discovered on Saturday local time. The authorities did not publicly reveal the name of the person or provide details on the circumstances of the death. They added that the individual was found unconscious and that life-saving procedures to revive them were not successful. Each year, tens of thousands of people travel to the remote area in northwest Nevada to take part in the Burning Man Festival to make art, dance, and enjoy a community spirit. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
K-pop boy band Stray Kids has achieved second place in the United States for the most albums sold this year, only behind Taylor Swift. The group's agency, JYP Entertainment, announced on Monday that the group's third studio album, 5 Star, originally released in June last year, has registered the most sales among K-pop albums for 2023, starting from January. The album made it to last year's Billboard Chart 200 alongside their mini albums Ordinary and Maxident. The group will be performing as the only Asian artist at the 2023 Global Citizen Festival in Central Park, New York on September 23rd. In addition, Stray Kids will kick off their first ever Dome Tour since their debut this month in Osaka and continue on to Tokyo next month. Time now to take a look at what's been happening in the world of sports. Joining us in the studio is our sports editor, Paul Need. Good evening, Paul.
Evening.
Let's first start with football. A hat trick for Heung-min over the weekend?
Yes, that's right. It came in a 5-2 win for Spurs over Burnley. What was his first goals of the season so far? Son was playing as a striker rather than a winger or wide forward, a decision that proved to be something of a masterstroke by manager Ange Postecoglou. His first goal came on 16 minutes to make it 1-1 before a quick-fire double with goals on 63 and 66 minutes had Spurs 4 and then 5-1 up. It was his 4th Premier League hat-trick, and all have come in the month of September. Since his first in September 2020, only Erling Haaland has scored more Premier League hat-tricks. Haaland also scored a hat-trick this weekend for Manchester City, as did Evan Ferguson for Brighton. This was the first time in 28 years that 3 players scored hat-tricks in the same weekend in the Premier League. Son, though, is now on 106 Premier League goals and overtakes Didier Drogba and Cristiano Ronaldo. Up next for Son is international duty for South Korea, taking on Wales later this week and then Saudi Arabia next week.
Well, Son isn't the only Europe-based star who's in form ahead of those friendlies.
Yes, you're quite right, because Hwang Hee-chan on Sunday scored his second goal of the season. It came in a defeat for Wolves, though, losing 3-2 to Crystal Palace. There had been suggestion that he was injured, but now looks ready for the friendlies for Korea. But over in Belgium, Hong Hyun-sok on Sunday scored 2 for Ghent in a 2-1 win over Club Bruges. They were Hong's first goals of the season, his second in Belgium, having previously played for LASK in Austria. Meanwhile, in the English Championship, the second division, Bergeron made his debut for Stoke City. It came in a 2-0 loss at home to Preston North End, but he came on in the second half and showed some good touches. His move to England came last week, signing from K-League 1 club Daejeon Hana Citizen.
And moving on to baseball now. San Diego Kim Ha-sung has made history. What can you tell us?
Yes, he has. He has surpassed 30 steals this season, which is something that has never been done before by a South Korean in Major League Baseball. Against the San Francisco Giants on Sunday, Kim Ha-sung recorded 2 steals to take him on to 31 from 3 at-bats. He also recorded 1 hit and 1 walk. The Padres won the match 4-0. Kim is also close to joining the 20 home run and 30 steals club. He needs just 3 more home runs this season to achieve that. From 133 games, Kim has a batting average of 0.275 and has also recorded 52 RBIs. Meanwhile, Yoo Hyun-jin looks set to return to the mound on Wednesday local time when the Blue Jays take on the Oakland Athletics. The Blue Jays announced that he will be the starting pitcher after a 4-day rest. He's looking for his 4th win of the season.
All righty, thanks for that, Paul. See you next week.
Thank you. See you.
A ridge of high pressure will stick around for the next few days across the country. For today, heat wave alerts are issued for southern parts of the country, including Chungcheongdo, Jeollado, and Gyeongsangnam-do provinces. Unseasonable heat will continue for tomorrow with a good mix of sunshine and clouds. For Seoul, highs will be topping out at 31 degrees Celsius. This high-pressure system will be encouraging high moisture levels in the air, which is why we'll be seeing heat index values increasing. Sensible temperatures will be hovering around 33 degrees for southern regions. The East Coast and Jeju Island will see brief showers tomorrow. The coastlines of Gangwon-do and Gyeongsangbuk-do provinces will see 5 to 40 millimeters. Jeju Island can expect 5 to 20. This round of rainfall will last until this Wednesday. And partly cloudy to overcast skies are expected for the morning hours. Seoul and Busan will be starting off at 24 degrees. As for the daily highs, Seoul will get up to 31, Gwangju 32, Daegu and Busan will be reaching 30 degrees. And clear skies are expected for the time being with daytime highs of 31 degrees in Seoul. That's all for now, and here are the weather conditions around the world.
That is News Center for tonight. Thank you for watching. A panel session coming up.